Hi there, Josh here, and welcome to a short hobbyist novitiate video. This time we're doing Legions Imperialis, where we paint up a Legimp model in the colours of one of the 18 legions or their solar counterparts. We're aiming for these videos to be beginner friendly, but hopefully introduce a few intermediate techniques along the way. In this video, I'm going to be looking at the 6th Legion, the Space Wolves. Is that right? Are they the 6th Legion? Oh, nailed it first try. Brilliant. Grab a hot drink and a biscuit and let's dig in. As always with these videos, I'm starting off with a Chaos Black primer. This time I'm going to start by building up a dry brush, quite a heavy dry brush of Mechanicus Standard Grey. This is sort of the undercoat for the entire scheme, so we're only really leaving the black prime in the really deepest recesses. So yeah, as you can see, I've got quite a lot of paint on my brush compared to normal dry brushing, and I'm not being too focused, I'm just slopping it all over the place, really trying to build up that grey. For the Space Wolves, I really wanted them to feel like they'd been through countless battles, covered in not so much dirt like the last one, but definitely lots of scratches and dings, and I think dry brushing is a really nice way of building up that texture, especially when used with lots of layers of dry brushing. Now we've achieved that nice grey look, I'm coming in with a lighter grey, this time Dawnstone, and doing a slightly more focused dry brush. This time I'm being a bit more selective and picking out the raised edges and the panels that I think are going to catch the light the most. In this step you're really defining the shape of the model. Something I try and do when dry brushing like this is to focus particularly on the tops of the side panels and then the middle of the top panel, just to get a bit of a gradient from lighter to darker across the model. I think that really helps them stand out and look visually interesting even from a distance, even when they're so very teeny tiny. After that's done, I wanted to bring in a little bit of that blue-grey that the Space Wolves are kind of known for. That colour really sort of stands out in the reference images to me as feeling particularly Space Wolves-y. So I'm coming in with, surprise surprise, Space Wolves Grey, the contrast paint by Games Workshop that just goes wonderfully over all the other greys. Not a very thick coat, just enough to tint it that slight grey-blue. Not being too careful here, just getting it on everything really. The beauty of contrast paints for this kind of thing is you don't need to worry too much about them pooling in recesses and changing the shadow colours. Contrast paints really just give hue to what's underneath them, taking the brightness and saturation from whatever the undercoat is. I kind of love working with contrast paints. I think they're a really great medium, something I've gotten into much more recently, but just use all the time now, and I don't think I'll ever really go back. After that, I wanted to do some highlighting beyond what I had already, but not a particularly careful or refined edge highlight. I wanted to have every edge covered in these lighter chips in this Fenrisian Grey, which has a similar visual effect to edge highlighting, but gives the model lots more sort of detail and texture, really helping add to that battle-worn, chipped-up look. So you can see here I'm just using a very small amount of quite thinned Fenrisian Grey on the edge of my brush, and I'm just running it along all the raised edges, anywhere that I think might be chipped in battle or scratched by enemy gunfire or debris that's thrown up as the Rhino charges along. As we get into a little bit faster, you can see I'm gradually building up more and more layers of this. I start quite subtle to begin with, but by the end there's really scratches everywhere. I think building these layers up really helps. As a painter, you just sort of get a feel for where they should be, and building them up in layers gives you that feeling of the time that this rhino's been out. I think a lot of these videos I probably end up spending a fair bit of time on the weathering. Partly that's just because it's my favourite bit of the process. I think getting the base coats down is all well and good. It's when you come to weathering that you really start to tell the story of the model. I was trying to be especially strong with the chips on the front there, make it look like the rhino's always driving forward into battle. There's a little bit on the back, but not anywhere near as much. The enemy don't often get a chance to shoot at the back of this one, which I think helps it feel more Space Wolves-y. I'm sort of adding in some slightly bigger scratches this time now. Really thin with the paint, just really carefully adding in a few longer lines. I think it's important not to go too far with these. I might have overdone it slightly on some of those top panels, but I think a couple of longer scratches is good. Once that's all done, I'm more or less finished with the armour colour of the rhino, so it's time to come in and look at some of those metallics, some of the details. I think Runelord Brass is a great colour for Space Wolves. It's a nice goldish, but not too saturated, so it doesn't feel garish against the rest of their grey scheme. It also just happens to be one of my all-time favourite colours. Don't know what it is, I just really like it. It's a lovely paint to use as well. So I'm picking out the dozer blades and the exhausts first with this colour, just giving it that little extra pop. It stands out nicely against the grey-blue of the rest of the rhino. I was thinking about doing the underside pipe of the exhaust a different colour, but I think there was enough different colours on the model already, and it was nice to just keep a bit of a consistent palette. And then obviously just looking at those guns on top of the rhino as well. And that's us, you know, oh, hold on. What's going on there? Struggling to frame the camera. Sorry about that. The tracks, yeah, I'm coming in on the tracks here with some Leadbelcher just to give them a slightly different metallic. I think tracks in brass or gold is probably a little bit unbelievable to me, but a good dull Leadbelcher is quite a nice one. And then I'm just giving a little bit of a Skullcrusher Brass highlight along all of those metallic areas, just picking out very fine edges and high points. Nothing that's going to stand out too much, but help each bit feel a little bit more shiny and a little bit more sharp on those dozer blades. So yeah, after that I put on some decals. I did this off camera because it's pretty fiddly on these models, but it's just banging the decals on and then a couple of coats of matte varnish. Now I've mixed up here an oil wash, which is Starship Filth. I've mixed it sort of 50-50 with some mineral spirits, and I'm putting this more or less over everything. This is kind of just to bed all the colours together, bring those decals down so that they don't stand out too much as a bright white against the rest of the model, and then also just give us a bit of weathering, bit of dirt to the rest of the model. If oil washes are a little bit too intimidating for you at this point, you can very easily achieve a similar effect, but something like Nuln Oil would be fine. I think it would work quite nicely on this. Any sort of black wash, you apply it in the same sort of way and it would work nicely. That's something else that should be noted actually. I use oil paints quite a lot in these videos, but there's definitely always a wash-based alternative that is probably easier to get your hands on and a little bit more beginner friendly. So yeah, here we have the final result. I'm really pleased with this one actually. Space Wolves are probably one of my least favourite of the Legions, but I really like how this scheme came out, and it sort of made me think maybe if I started a Space Marine army for Legions, I would definitely be very tempted to paint them as Space Wolves. I think this model looks really nice, especially, you know, we have these big close-ups of them, but most of the time you'll be seeing it from 3 feet away, tiny on a table somewhere, and I think they look really good at that distance too. Thanks for watching, really enjoying making these videos, and I hope you guys are all enjoying watching them. Yeah, see you next time.